Hi, this is Jimmy Teague with Phoenix Home Inspections. I'm always showing people how to save money, little tips and tricks. This video is showing you how to save money. It's more informational based because when I got onto the project that I was doing, there wasn't a lot of videos, and to be honest with you, a lot of it's self-explanatory as you look at it, but it would be kind of helpful to know a little bit more about the project. So what am I showing you today? Well, if you can't tell, I'm up on my roof again, but let me show you what's going on. I'm teaching you or showing you what's involved in installing a solar heater for a pool. And that there is my little setup. But anyway, let me get down off the roof and actually show you how everything's set up, so that way, in case you're thinking about it, because I've had a lot of people ask me about it, just to give you kind of a concept of what's involved. All right. Okay, so now I'm back on the ground. I want to show you what was involved in doing the plumbing. Now, when you start looking at the research on solar panels, it's a little deceiving, and I hate to say, I've actually talked to several pool people, and they're like, talk to the manufacturer of the solar, because they don't understand solar systems unless they actually install them. So first thing that you got to look into is look at your pump. Let me show you mine. I have a old Hayward Power Flow XL pump, a single horsepower. Now, when you look it up, I think it does something like 65. I think it's 65 psi. It'll say that it can flow water about 30 feet, and it'll be able to lift it up a single story. Now, that's discouraging for me, because I'll tell you what I've got. I've got 180 feet of pipe plumbing. My house is a ranch on a walkout basement with cathedral ceiling. So technically, with the pool being in ground, dug down, set down, you're going almost, I want to say 2.5, 3 stories. So that's really like 3 times the amount, actually more with the plumbing, than it's actually what says online that it's able to do. So what I'm saying is look at your pump and see what the PSI is. Because when I looked at my solar panels, it says maximum flow is 50 PSI. So you're going to get friction loss. And I think that's where the problem is people don't understand friction. And not, a lot of people don't. I mean, trust me, people don't understand the hydraulics. I've been a firefighter for like 27 years. I've taught hydraulics for over 10 years at Ivy Tech State College, so I do have somewhat of an understanding. Here's what you just need to know about it. Hydraulics, for figuring out your pressures. So roughly every story you lose about 5 psi. So I'm figuring I'm about 35, 40 feet up, so you know, that's really 3 stories. 3 times 5 is 15. So I'm losing between, you know, I'm going to add 15-20% or 15 to 20 psi. So your pump itself, with an above ground, your pump has to be below the water level. So when you open up your pipes and your plumbing, your water will go all the way up to where your water level is. So like on my filter, my water would naturally fill there. So anyway, your pump will not vacuum. It will not lift water, because these pumps are like centrifugal type pumps. They're not a positive displacement type pump. I'm going to say as long as you've got water flowing into your pump, what you're doing is you're pushing water. So so I'm pushing that water up. I'm not lifting, I'm pushing. So if you figured 2.5 stories, 3, I'll figure 20 psi, that's what you're going to lose because of gravity. Now, the thing is once it gets up the top and it comes back, you're gaining 25 psi. Now, what you got to remember though is your pump is losing 25 psi. It's never gaining that back. It's gaining the 25 psi at the discharge. So your water's losing that 25 psi. So let's figure that the pump is rated at 65 psi. I have to be below 50 or it'll blow my solar panels. So with the solar panels, because I talked to one vendor and they said that whenever they up them, they always blow them. So you need to talk to people. Well, that makes sense, especially if you're going to put them on the ground or like on the fence, not actually on the roof. You got to be careful about that friction loss, because if your pump is really pushing out too much pressure. So that's the first thing to do, is make sure you don't have too much pressure, because you'll blow them. So once you figured that out, the next step is figure out the size of your pool. 15 by 30, I believe. The problem is every time I've ordered covers, a 16 by 32 fits better. So I want to say it's a 15 by 30. A 15 by 30 for the panels that I bought. Recommend 4 panels. I actually bought 6, but if you notice, I only put 5 up. Just because I'm going to have to plumb to get around my drain vent, or my sewer vent, and I was like, okay, I've had enough. I've been on this roof way too long. I'm going to try 5. I'm going to keep that 6 one as a backup, and if it's not doing well enough, or I feel like it needs to provide more heat, I'll add that 6 one in. But what you're doing is figuring out how many panels you want, and typically I think what they go by is you want somewhere around 50 up to 100% of the surface area. So, you know, a 15 by 30, you want that many panels, at least 50%. I think optimum is actually 75% is what you really want, is 75%. But if you get 100%, it's going to heat a lot better. But anyway, so going back to friction loss. So the first thing I try, because I know hoses, and typically your plumbing is always hoses. Hoses do have more friction loss than solid pipe. So the first thing I did is I tore all of my hoses where I could, and then I hard plumbed everything. So that way I don't lose as much friction loss. The other thing is when I was talking about the height of the water it fills, the water will naturally fill this pipe without the plumbing run or pump running, because it's all below the level of the water. Until you get underneath my deck and I shoot straight up, that's where it's losing all of that pressure. So it's not pushing it right away. It doesn't matter. I wanted to be safe. So let me break down my system and why I plumbed it the way I did, just in case you decide to replumb yours. So mine has a floor drain. If you're getting a pool, I absolutely encourage anybody to put it in a floor drain, just because it sucks in all the crap that's on the bottom. But let me show you how mine's probably set up a little bit weird, and I am not finished. I've actually need to put a support bracket here, because there's a lot of weight here and I'm kind of leaking here at my coupling. But so you see, I actually do have a hose. The reason why is whenever I come to winterize it, this type of shutoff valve has a coupling, so I can break this down, lift it up, and I can get the top of the hose above the water line and tie it to this post, and then I can fill it with antifreeze. So that way, if I just unhook it and drop it, it's going to drain the whole pool. So what I've done is I've got it, I'm coming over here to a T. Here's my skimmer coming down. You can see I've got a shutoff valve for it, a shutoff valve for it, and then as I run across, I'm actually going to put another shutoff here, and I'll explain why. And then I've got a union that I can loosen up, because what I like doing in the winter is I'll unhook this, I will unhook this and take the whole pump inside, so I don't worry about freezing. And then as my plumbing comes around, same thing. I've got a coupling here that I can unhook, and a coupling here, so I can take this in and not worry about freezing. And then as we go over, okay, so let's go back over here and I'll explain why I've got it the way I've got it. Whenever you run a vacuum, this may be too much, but whenever you run a vacuum and you've got these two, you've got a lot of water flow going through here. But if I shut this valve off here, which allows me to turn off the suction, if you will, from the floor drain, I have more pull. I've got more vacuum out of my vacuum, pool vacuum, if you will. The reason why I have two different kinds is if this is like a positive shut off, so when I shut this off, no water's coming through this. If you've ever seen these got the little stupid balls in it. I thought I had one laying on the ground. But anyway, oh yeah, that little thing is what's inside of it. If you unscrew this with that off, that ball will come out, water comes flowing. You put the ball in with it turned off, water still seeps through it. I wanted a positive shut off because I want no water going through it. So I use this to shut this off, get more vacuum. The reason why I want to come over here and put a main shut off here is because whenever I need to clean out my skimmer, which I need to clean it out, is with this I have to shut 2 valves off in order, well actually 3. I got to shut these 2 off, and then my jet, I've got to shut it off over here so I can undo this, otherwise water still comes out slowly, but not really fast, but it still drains the pool. So I want a positive shut off. So anyway, going back to the solar panel, with this all hooked up, I've got it all hard plumbed. Then what you do is you put in a 3-way diverter. This I had to play with. I actually put cheat notes down, but the way this is set up is I can shut off by turning this. I've got it written down. If I put it in position 1, it actually shuts off all 3 sides. If I put it in, see, 2, which is here, the way that thing moves, all 3 sides are open. If I put it in 3, it's actually shutting this side off, so the water's going this way towards my solar panels. And whenever I'm done, which I'm going to go ahead and shut them off, because right now my solar panels are actually running. If I put it over to 4, that's just my pool jet. And then I put a shut off on my return from my solar panels, just in case as the water's going through here, it could siphon out the water that's in the return. So that's the reason why I put that shut off. But right now my water with that position is going straight in. But with this diverter, after you go from your diverter and say I turn it back over to my solar, which would be number 3, which I wrote it on here, I've got a backflow preventer. The reason why is, if you remember, as you go roof, that's like 25-30 psi. That water just sitting there is actually putting more pressure on your pump. Plus you're also going to probably lose prime because it's going to come back, you can get air. So this keeps the water in the line from it coming back. The reason why I put that valve is so that way it doesn't allow it to drain out the other side. So it's completely shut off. The reason why I put my coupling here, and if you notice I've got one here and then I've got this one here, is when I winterize this, water's going to be stuck here. You can't drain this pipe with this without having this in the place, because this keeps water from coming back. So that's the reason why we got those couplings. And if you notice, I've put supports, still got to put a screw there, to hold everything in place. Now, as you come around, what I did was I actually mounted it to these mounts. Never do here, because you're going to go right into the liner. But I did these in the mounts, and I just use these 1.5-inch brackets, because this is 1.5-inch plumbing. Something that I didn't even think about is these 22.5 valves. Those I use the most of to make these bends. Now if you have a round pool, you'll probably use a lot more. And then I just mounted it to the brackets. Now the main thing is, remember which one's your feed and which one's your return. So, and another thing I'm going to do is somewhere on my low spot, because this is all angled going downhill slightly, so that way when I break them apart, come winter, it'll let them to naturally drain. And then if you remember when I was up, I showed you that vent plug. I pulled that, and it'll allow it to drain a lot faster, and you know, if moisture and stuff gets in there, it'll allow it to drain a little bit better. But let me show you what I've got. So, and excuse the mess, work site, still haven't cleaned up. So I've got my brackets about almost every 4 feet, and especially wherever I've got them making bends. So that's my sending. I've got another vent up on top just in case I needed it. I'm going to put another bracket here in the middle and one up on top just to give it more security. And then I don't know if I can zoom in on a camera or not. Yeah, I can. See that? I've got a union up on top, so that way I can unscrew it if I ever need to take it apart. I've got the same on. So I've got multiple areas where I can break it. Depending on how your roof is laid out, you can run it vertical or horizontal. Mine is going up and down. I don't know if you can see it. Nah, you can't see it from this angle. But mine's going up and down. When you read the instructions, when you first pull them out of the box, you've got to lay them out for like 30 minutes because they're all rolled up and it's hard to spread it out. And I'll be honest with you, I laid mine out for a couple hours. They was still, because it was a cooler day, would not lay flat. Now, once it hit 80 degrees and I was doing it, it worked out just fine. Looking up there, when I threw them down there and laid them out, they flattened out. And the other thing is when you connect them at the top and the bottom, I connected them below and took them up at two sections at a time. The problem was the way they were twisted or going into the hose connector, because it's just a hose with two hose clamps that holds the two together. You can actually buy a female 1.5 PVC fitting with a slip joint or slip fitting where you can put pipe in it. I wouldn't do that because it'd be hard to tear it apart unless you put couplings in each one. And couplings are like $12, $15 a piece, so that gets expensive. But if you wait until to connect them once they're on the roof, you can twist the solar panel so that way it's laying flat on the roof. So my suggestion is lay them out and really pay attention to what's the easiest. If you look at that where it comes down the peak there by the vent, that is extremely steep. One, standing on it and reaching up, you can't touch where that is. So I actually plumbed all that and dropped it down and put the anchors in. And it made it really easy. I think it also made it look really clean. Ways to kind of reduce friction is try to use more 45s than 90s, and try to use 22.5s, especially to make the corners and stuff. But other than that, works great. Now the last piece of the puzzle, which I'm getting ready to do right now, is a solar cover. Now what you got to know about the actual solar panels is it only heats it when the sun's on it. So you want to turn it on when the sun's on it, and that actually warms the water up. The problem is if you don't shut it off when the sun goes down, you'll actually cool the pool. So you've got to shut it off once the sun's no longer on it. They do sell gadgets. They're like $300 or $400 that I guess will turn the valve on and off when the sun's hitting it. That might be an investment later, but right now this was an expensive project. The panels, 2 panels a piece, I think I was getting them from like $259. I have 3 of them, and I want to say I've probably got $600-800 in plumbing. But I did replumb everything on the pool and everything, plus the fittings. But you know, pipe materials are super stupid on the pricing right now, and that's because of COVID that things have dropped. But you know, the fittings, the hangers should be like $1 or something. Just one part of it's $2.50, so almost every bracket's $5, and I should only have like less than $1 in each one. So everything's crazy expensive. So figure about $2,000 if you're going to do it yourself, depending on how big of your project is. Still a lot cheaper than buying a gas heater or running electric. But anyway, yeah, add the solar cover after you've done that, because what it is the pool, after you've heated all day, at night it's going to lose its heat. That blanket that you put on it is going to keep that heat in there a little bit longer, so you're not losing as much. With you being able to see what's going on, for those guys that are looking at it, because I've seen them, they're like, yep, throw it together, but they never show this part here. You need a one-way valve. It also talks about a backflow preventer, which is this thing. And sometimes they talk about a vent plug, which I've got one up on top to help drain it. And you might have to fill it if there's too much air, because it'll get airlocked. Trying to think. The other thing you may consider doing before you charge it is hook this all up, unhook your discharge to your solar panels, run the water, because you can get mud, rock, debris, the shavings from cutting the pipe, all in that pipe, and it could clog those tubes. So flush out your lines before you hook it all up and then run it. Because even with mine, after I did everything and then I hooked it up, I didn't get the mud out of the return, and you could just see mud just being shot right in the pool. But of course it filtered it right out. But I mean, it definitely can cause issues. Anyway, hopefully this gives you some insight of what's involved in a solar heater, and hopefully you enjoyed something or learned something today. So until next time, I'll catch you later. And this is Jimmy Tig with Phoenix Home Inspections. Until next time, bye.